Right. So today we are here to discuss about how to get into ISB YLP and the elements and skills that you need to make it to the ISB YLP to 2023. So about me, I am Shruti and I am an MBA admission consultant with GOALisB, an ISB alumnus and a participant with the Stanford GSP. I am also a qualified executive coach and a certified career coach. So today we have in our discussion, we are accompanied with Mr. Gurjot Sachar. He is an ISB YLP 2022 23 intake admit, and he's currently working with the impact investment wing at Avishkar Capital as an analyst, and he's an active volunteer with social causes. So thank you, Gurjot, for joining us, and thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you, Shruti, for having me.
Right.
It's a pleasure to
So
be here.
Gurjot, mm, thank you. So please share with us your profile and how you came across the ISB YLP and why did you choose to apply to the ISB YLP in the first place?
Okay, so speaking about my profile, I have been born and brought up in the city of Mumbai. And speaking about what I'm doing currently, so I'm working with Avishkar Capital as an analyst in the impact investing arm. So that's about what I'm doing right now. But before that, I did my college from HR. So I've done a BMS in finance from HR, and my schooling was from Bombay Scottish. So that's about my past. Speaking about ISB YLP, so I actually came across ISB YLP on the last day of the applications closing. So I think that was April 7th. That's when I found out that something like this even exists, right? Because not many people know that there's a deferred MBA intake for ISB. So that's when I found out about this. So that's why even my first round was in a haste, and that's when I did it within, I think within the last 4 to 5 hours is when I found out. So I found out by 7 p.m. is when I made up my mind that okay, I'm going to apply to this, and 12 o'clock was the deadline. So why I chose to take up ISB, the reasoning came up later, right? The fact that I was allowed to, have the opportunity to be a part of the flagship program at ISB didn't register to me, and I didn't have the correct time to make the decisions. But speaking in retrospect, why I'm taking up ISB YLP is because I've always, as I said, I did my BMS in finance, right? So, and I'm also working in finance. I'm working private equity at Avishkar. So I've been pretty clear about the fact that I want to do finance. So a 2 year MBA program, according to me, was not the correct outlook towards it, right? Because the first year is more inclined towards helping you understand what domain you want to master into. Another reason why I wanted to do ISB was whereas the likes of IIMs, even though I applied to IIMs, I gave my CAT in November 2022. Didn't do too well because of some technical glitches on the day of the exam. So that was another problem that I faced. So I didn't shut that option down. But the good part about ISB being that you get a secured admission in advance and you have 2 years to get industry experience and understand, what you want to learn. So otherwise it's just like just continued learning, but with nothing that that you have to look out for. Additionally, one last point, which I think is great about ISB, is that the average age of the batch is around 26, 27, right? So when I'll be on the lower side of the cohort, so that would help me a lot to gauge better perspectives and people from different walks of life are coming in. So that's pretty helpful to what I want to do ahead in life, right? So yeah,
Right.
that's about it.
So yeah, right. So let us look into detail, some detail as to what the ISB YLP is all about. So the ISB
Okay.
YLP is actually not an MBA program. It's an entry route to the full-time ISB MBA, that is the ISB PGP. So technically, it is a deferred admit that a student whosoever is in the final or the pre-final year of their bachelor's or a 5 year integrated program, or maybe a postgraduate student, so they can join the main ISB program after 20 months of their work experience. So they get a deferred admit when they apply to the ISB YLP while they're in the final or the pre-final year, and they join once they have the work experience. And the YLP, the admission cycle happens in 3 stages. So you get to the next stage after being shortlisted for the previous one. Another set of information that is very important for the ISB YLP applicants is that one, it is the only deferred MBA in India. So it is a great opportunity for graduates to, secure a seat to a top ranked MBA program well ahead in time. The second thing is that the second stage is a very tricky stage. So writing the GMAT or the GRE along with the coursework, your placement process, your internship term is not an easy thing to do. So you need to start your GMAT and GRE prep early ahead in time. The ISB YLP application is not as simple as it sounds, so it needs a lot of preparation and planning. So the first question perhaps is what you should decide on early ahead in the cycle is that whether you're going to write the GMAT or the GRE, and then which one to take up. So a good way of deciding whether you want to write the GMAT or the GRE is to perhaps take a mock test for both, and then accordingly you see what is a good format for you, and then you start preparing for that, because you will not have time to switch to another test going down the line. You have to submit your GMAT or GRE by August, and your stage one applications are due by the end of March. Another difference between the ISB YLP and the MBA in India. So ISB YLP is, again, it is an entry route to the ISB MBA, that is the ISB PGP full-time MBA program. That is a 1 year full-time program. The other MBA programs in India, they are 2 year full-time programs with, they have the summer internship involved. Another difference between the ISB YLP and the MBA in India is that the ISB YLP admissions are through the GMAT or the GRE score submission. However, the rest of the programs, they accept the CATs or the ZAT or the SNAP, the different tests. Then through the YLP, you join the ISB PGP program after you complete the mandatory work experience of 20 months. However, through the CAT or the ZAT or the SNAP exams, once you are applying to the programs, you join the MBA immediately after graduation. So these are the few differences between the ISB YLP and the MBA programs in India. So what does ISB YLP, ISB look for in a YLP candidate? The applications, so this is what we have from the ISB website. ISB says that the applications are rigorously assessed on a criteria like personality, worldview, over and above academic excellence. So we can understand the level of competition that you're entering into for these coveted seats of securing your admit to the ISB PGP at least 20 months ahead of others who are going to apply at certain other timelines in their career. So what matters in your ISB YLP selection? It is your personality, your worldview, and your academic excellence. And where do all these traits show? They will come up in essays at the stage one and the stage two. They will come up in different application sections like the awards and activities and hobbies. They will also come up in your resume, your LOR, and the interview. So once we look at the ISB YLP, the application structure across stages, ISB is taking information about you. They are trying to know more about you from different at different levels in the application cycle. So, thank you for joining us. All our attendees. Please share where you're joining us from, and feel free to share your questions. We'll be taking them up in the course of the discussion itself. So passions and interests. So when we look at what ISB looks for, first criteria is the personality. So when discussing about the personality, a main important part of your personality is your passion and interest. So do you write? Do you sing or dance? Do you read? You could also be into stock trading, scuba diving, entrepreneurship. The list is endless. The point is that how far do you go to follow your passions and interests? So if you write, are you getting published? If you sing or dance, are you collaborating, mentoring, or teaching? If you're reading, are you sharing your views somewhere, or are you collaborating with other readers through some book clubs? If you are sharing some resources which you can check out and see how to take your contribution at an another level. The ISB YLP Stage 1 essay exactly takes care of this particular aspect of the application is what you are passionate about. So it says everyone is inclined towards a particular interest or goal which they are passionate about. be it in the field of academics or extracurriculars. So you can choose which one you want to take up. Then, what is that one thing that you are passionate about? What are your current efforts? And what efforts will you put in the future? So that means that the school is very much interested in knowing about what you are working on. What else do you like except for your, career? Maybe it is the academics or extracurriculars. And based on that, how are you taking it further? How are you delving more into it? So the kind of engagement that you have with your passions and interests is something that interests them very much in the stage one essay. Over here, I would like to discuss with Gurjot as to how did you approach the ISB YLP essays. Then we'll come to the next part of the discussion. And viewers, please feel free to throw in your questions, and we'll be taking them up one by one.
Yeah. So I think during my time, the first essay was slightly different. It was something regarding your biggest failure. And again, as I said, I had very limited time to, tackle that essay. So I had a period of 4 months to be able to crack that essay. But again, as you shared, the things that they're looking for. So to my luck, this story I spoke about was around my this thing for stock trading. So I was into stock trading, and the essay, the question was, "What's the biggest loss you ever suffered?" Right. So I spoke about it, and what I believe ISB is actually looking for is a true story and not a rosy picture. So because I had been through the entire issue, I was able to, speak about it clearly with facts. And this also came up later in my interview because one of the panelists, who was also a YLP student, could relate to it. So that also helped me and helped him to understand that I was not trying to, build up a fake story, or and it was a real story. So again, what I would like to explain is, like, it's not necessary for you to speak about all the nice things that you've done, right? And not try to oversell yourself. So that's the approach that I used unintentionally in the first mock, in the first essay, and in the second essay, obviously, with 1 month of back and forth with Shruti on my essay. So yeah, that's about it.
Right. So coming back to what ISB looks for, another important criteria that they're looking for is a clear direction in terms of your goals, your personal pursuits in career progression, and towards what is the big picture view that you have with the contribution that you have in the world. So, in terms of personal pursuits and personal plans, the ISB Stage 1 essay takes care more or less on the academic and the passion, that you have as a personal, as an individual. In terms of career progression, what are we, looking at? Are we looking at buzzwords? Are we looking at action behind the buzzwords? Career is not a job. There has to be a career vision. The ISB Stage 2 essay talks about what is the ideal career that you've always wanted to pursue. And do you still want to pursue that? How will you make it a reality? So they're looking for an action plan over here. So in terms of looking at your career, it's much more than a job. It's like a vision that you have with respect to what you want to do in the future. So Gurjot, what was your take and how did you approach the stage two essay?
So yeah, speaking about the stage two essay. So again, as you said, the vision, and they what they're actually looking for is a trajectory, right? So what the main quality that they are trying to gauge is, are you clear about what you want to do? So are your actions in the past, in the present, and the actions, say, coming into ISB or the profile you're working in right now, aim towards your future goal, right? So my future goal has always been to grow in the field of finance. And also, as Shruti mentioned, I have also been involved in social causes through my grandfather's ventures. So again, I was able to link both of them since I'm working in impact investing already. So they did see a clarity of thoughts, and that's what is required out of everyone who's applying and trying to build their essay, right? So not trying to paint a rosy picture, but just be truthful and honest about what you're trying to get out of this program, right? So what's the end goal that you're working towards, and there has to be a clarity which needs to be built, a trajectory showing, say, why I chose this undergrad degree, right? So what's the rationale behind that? What are the why I was in social services, why I went on and did impact investing at Avishkar, and now why I would want to come into ISB. So there has to be some sort of clarity to explain why I'm taking up these activities and this growth path to show where I want to be after ISB, because that's what they're trying to basically understand out of your essays.
Right. And apart from that, much more than that, you were almost clear that you wanted to get into impact investing, and that is the point of time. I think that you also ventured a step further. You got into Avishkar Capital. You made sure that you were following the path that you were planning for. So there's a lot of hard work that goes behind it. So tell us more about how you went into impact investing, and how is it how did you come up to the forming the path that you want to follow in the future, and how
Right.
important
So
it
I was
was
always
that?
inclined. Yeah. So I was always inclined towards finance and also had an inclination towards social activities because speaking about my family background, I come from a joint family with my grandparents and my uncle auntie together, right? So my grandfather has always been into social activities, donations, educating children. So as when I wanted to pursue a career in finance, I was also had a broad inclination towards this field. And again, impact investing even today is at a very nascent age. So till a very long time, I didn't even know something like this exists, right? And this being in one of the most lucrative industries in India, basically I reached out to uh, Vineet at Avishkar and tried to understand if there was an opportunity because they had raised a new fund. So right now I'm working in Avishkar. Even it's been I think 6 months, but I'm still working there on an intern stipend. Right. That's also because I wanted the entry into this industry, and I was not very well qualified at that stage because no one takes you into private equity and impact investing with just an undergrad degree. So they had me in on a stipend. I went through a rigorous process of 4 case studies that I had to do on their portfolio companies. So that's the kind of procedure I went through, and now I'm working with them for like the past 7 months. Yeah.
Right. So Devansh is asking about how much weightage do all the selection criteria have in the process, and are they dependent on a case-by-case basis? So Devansh, it is actually from the point of view of the school's the information that we have from the school, there is no particular weightage that is given out by the school. So we will not assume a number over here. However, having said that, from our experience and from the experience of helping students, we shall assume that all of these, criteria are equally important. So the criteria being first your academic performance, second being your GMAT or your GRE score, third being your career goals and your clarity of career goals, your communication skills, your leadership skills, and each of these is equally important. We cannot give a number to it, but yes, on a case by case basis, it does set off at some point in time. So for example, if you have a low GPA, or if you have a low score in your academic, and your GMAT is like above average, much above average, so it does cancel out at some point in time. Again, definitely it is on a case by case basis. So we'll be happy to discuss it with you offline. Another thing that comes into play when you're applying to the ISB YLP is your self-awareness. I think this criteria, the evaluation for this criteria comes more towards when you are writing the essays in a subtle form, and very actively when you are interviewing with ISB. So, Gurjot, would you like to share your interviewing experience for the ISB YLP SL?
Right. So my interview experience. So basically, my interview happened at Taj Lawrence and Mumbai. So there's a panel of 3 ISB grads, right? And in my case, it was one freshly graduated ISB YLP grad who had graduated out of college in 2020, and two other from the flagship program. So it's a panel of three. And again, what every conversation that's happening there is going to be completely around the essay written. So they get a period of, I think, 10-15 minutes between each student coming in to have a look at your essays and, develop a certain kind of idea of what kind of questions they're looking for, what kind of topics that they want to know more about. So as I mentioned earlier, the panelist who was an ISB YLP grad, he happened to have had the same experience as me in stock trading. So, we had like a very good 5 minute discussion over this. And just to put it out there, it's not all a grilling process, right? People believe that an interview is a crazy grilling process. That's not the case at YLP, at ISB, not YLP, but yeah. So, and it's a very conversational interview with all of them, just trying to understand what you've written down in your essay. So they just want to see that the things that you've written down is something that you're actually following, something that you're aware about, and it's not that you've reached out to someone and just have them have or write down your essay. So they want it to be your story, and they want to understand that there is clarity on your end about the things you've written down, and are you taking steps to build forward on that. So my experience was pretty great. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of, when applicants are applying just out of college, so they are either pre-final or final year students, it becomes crazy at some point in time to understand, what exactly will add value to the application and what will not. So what else does ISB look for? So they look for communication skills. You can, communicate or you can portray your communication skills through your participation in MUNs, in debates, your participation in presentations, business plan presentations, college fest fundraising, your NGO fundraising, or any type of event marketing that you've been a part of at college. And then there's a whole lot of people who do not have the time for getting into the a lot of extracurriculars. And I believe in terms of people, especially in your case, Gurjot, we know that COVID was very much there when you graduated. A huge part of your education was covered in that. So, how
Right.
did the school look at that? How did you look at your extracurriculars, and how did you, put up an impressive application for that?
So again, right, because they are not there to grill you, right? So they are also aware about the constraints that the COVID had created for students. So being involved in extracurriculars was not that big an option. So again, during COVID, I had started up my own venture where I was dealing in second-hand vehicles, and that was happening from home. So I spoke about that and shared my understanding and my entrepreneurial instinct through that. That's one aspect I touched upon. Second aspect was again about the stock trading, which I was doing, and additionally, I spoke about the sports that I played, right? Because again, college events, college fest, all of that was not really possible in the COVID era. So apart from that, obviously there was a lot of questioning and trying to understand what I actually do with as the social organization that my grandfather runs. So broadly around these four topics is what I had mentioned in my academics and my extracurricular activities in the first stage, and that's the conversation that went on from there.
So one, question over here is that if you think you could have, a lot of applicants, they come up and say that, okay, I'm getting a NGO certificate from here, an NGO experience certificate from this X organization or Y organization. Just getting a certificate from some organization, do you think that would have helped you sustain that interview experience or that application process at ISP? Do you think
So
that was enough?
so again, like as I said before, people, if you're going to do this just to pitch a rosy picture out to the panelists, they are very smart and they've been on this side of the table, like just a few years back. So they know exactly what kind of things people try to put into the application just to get a tick. And that's exactly where they question you. So if you're not able to speak relevant facts and give a better understanding, because They also take those 10-15 minutes to read up upon, say, the organization. Say, if you mentioned that I got a certification from an X organization, say Arshia Foundation, right? So they'll take 10 minutes to read about what the organization does, just get a basic understanding of what you can gauge in 10-15 minutes. And if they ask you something about that and you're not able to answer, that could be a problem. So that's something that could be a make or break situation for them, but that's not something that they're looking out for. So what I would suggest is, if you do not have an NGO experience, or if you have not done something like this, please just don't go inside with just a certificate.
There's a follow-up question over here, Gujot. Khyati is asking about, what kinds of questions were asked in the interview. Were any of them technical? So I think you are in a better position to answer this from your first-hand experience.
So, Khyati, I wouldn't call them technical as such, but again, because I'm working in private equity and impact investing, and by the time my interview happened, I was working there for 3 months. So, obviously, when they did understand that, I didn't have wide, extensive knowledge about the field, but basic questions around that field and, what happens in private equity, what kind of deals you're handling, was it ticket size? Because again, at that stage, they also need to be able to judge that you're not faking your experience as well, right? So they just want you to be honest about your the things that you've written in your essay. So if you mentioned technical skills in your essay, that you say something like you're great at Python, or you have some certifications. So if there's something from an engineering background or something like that you've spoken about a lot in your essay, then there could be technical questions. So if you are talking a lot about academics in your essay, then you could be expecting questions coming around technicalities.
Right. Thank you so much. And Kathy, I think that answers your question well. And walking, further into the ISB YLP, what does ISB look for and how to build a strong profile. So another aspect of your ISB YLP profile would be your leadership and your teamwork skills. So how do you actually, as a fresher or a graduate student, showcase your leadership and your teamwork skills? So probably, you can think about your participation in sports. You can think about the mentorship activities that you've been a part of in college or outside of college, of course. And volunteering, there are so many opportunities for online volunteering these days. Any entrepreneurship ventures that you have been a part of, any initiatives that or initiatives that you have taken up for changing the status quo at different levels. It could be as simple as the society around you, or you live in a residential society and you thought that something needed to be changed and you thought about taking some steps towards that is a valid reason for you to take action and showcase your leadership and your teamwork skills as well. So problem solving skills, these are very important when you're looking at MBA programs. How do you, as a graduate who doesn't have work experience, show your problem solving skills? You can indulge in a lot of pro bono consulting assignments. There are so many avenues available, at this point in time, that not being a part of this actually looks as if you've not, looked around for opportunities. So try and look around for opportunities. Try and look around for pro bono consulting assignments. There would be in college initiatives. You have enactors. A lot of colleges, they have the 180-degree consulting as well. Then there are business plan competitions. There is internship experience, which does give you ample opportunities to showcase your problem solving skills. We are sharing a few resources here for you to look into and see if any of these would be important for you to build your profile for your ISB YLP application. Another very important aspect, which we also read through in the ISB criteria that they mentioned on their website, is about the worldview. Having an awareness and opinions, you have your industry choice that you want to go to. So, what are your skills in that particular industry? What is the expertise that you have? Again, this is one part of the situation, that is your awareness, opinions, skills, and expertise that you have gained through certifications or other learning programs that you have gone through. Second is that the worldview that you have gained, how do you put that into action? What is your participation? What is the level of participation? Are you looking for opportunities around you to, bring make any difference? Is there a demonstration from your end to put your worldview into action? So the mantra over here for looking at your ISB YLP application or putting up a strong application is to first totally avoid jargons and then look at the action taken. You have to demonstrate the action that you have taken for any beliefs that you have held. So, now this is a very interesting question that we have been waiting for. Impact investing is a raging buzzword these days. And Gurjot, you have worked in this space. You have gotten into this space at the level of a graduate, being a graduate, whereas a lot of people, a maximum number of people who get into this space are people who have graduated from MBA programs or master's programs. So, what is this space all about, and how can one prepare at the bachelor's or the undergraduate level to get into impact investing at all?
Right. So, how I prepared for this, I didn't really have the correct, timelines to prepare for it when I reached out to it. So I went through a stringent process of different kind of case studies that they had me do at 4 stages. I read up about the industry, and post acceptance is when my actual learning curve started. So I took up courses online. So Coursera has great number of courses from University of Pennsylvania and a lot of other great colleges, right? So you that's one great way to approach it and get the correct set of knowledge and understanding about a certain field. Staying at home, right? Because time has always been a constraint for everyone. And speaking about what this industry is about, basically, impact investing is investing for a cause, right? So it's all across ESG. So ESG stands for environmental, social governance. So for companies incorporating ESG practices into their operations, so that's where the funds are pushed forward. So the funding that happens, so being in private equity, impact investing in private equity basically means that you are funding a company which has an intent to improve their ESG practices. So that would be, reducing. Everyone's speaking about climate change right now, right? So reducing their carbon footprint on the environmental side, on the social side, involving more women in the, women upliftment, having women on their boards, having women employees. So everything around that. So what we're basically looking at is companies and entrepreneurs having an inclination and intent towards build their ESG practices in their organizations. So funding basis that, and obviously a commercial benefit that we're looking out for, right? So if they are able to sustain these practices that they're going, and it's not only about social. So it's not, people think that impact investing is the same as running an NGO, right? That you're giving out money to people, but this is not that. It's literally a subsection of private equity where you lend out to businesses that are commercially viable but also accepting and showing intent towards fighting a cause, you could say, yeah, or building their ESG strategies in place.
Right. And what is the kind of career path that any undergraduate or maybe an MBA graduate after some years can look at in the impact investing space, especially in a place like India?
So again, there's a lot of scope for impact investing in India, right? Although it's at a very, very nascent stage in India, with how the government also in the current budget showing an inclination towards green, this thing, towards hydrogen, towards clean fuel, towards climate, and all of that, right? So there's a strong inclination towards this and a very strong growth trajectory. So at an undergraduate level, I started off as analyst, as an intern, right? So again, people at this age come in and work in sales roles, but I didn't want to do that. I joined a startup and I was working in a pure sales role, but again, I could not develop an interest, even though it was much more well paying. But I decided to quit, and so you have to be ready to not be well paid in the start, right? So it's all about building the skill set because at that stage you need the company. I need Avishkar today more than they need me, right? So just to understand and learn early about the field and the industry, and then obviously there's a strong growth path, right? Because private equity is one of the most lucrative industries, even in finance. So yeah.
Right. So how hard is it to get into the ISB YLP program? So this is a question that we face almost every day. Is it really that big a deal? What are the steps that you need to take, and what are the things that you need to look into? One is that yes, the process is pretty long. So the action steps that come down to when you are a graduate is to take care of you have to be focused on your curriculum and your grades. You alongside have to work on your GMAT or GRE. First, you need to decide whether the GMAT or the GRE well in time. So this is a lot of decision making and a prioritization, challenge that you have as undergraduate students. And so deciding once you have decided the GMAT or the GRE, then you need to keep on preparing simultaneously while building your resume, your career track, which is through the placements process, or maybe an independent track that you have taken up alongside in your final year of graduation. So it requires a lot of planning and preparation, and keep on building the expertise. So fix on a certain career path that you want to get into, look at the long term from that point of view, and then work alongside in terms of building your resume, building your expertise, and then simultaneously looking at the other steps that are required for the application process, that is the GMAT or the GRE and curriculum and grades. Another very important part is, of course, your essays. You have to be able to put across your story in not more than 300 words. So 300 words is nothing when you're putting across a story. You have so much to talk about. What do you talk about? How do you prioritize which story to pick, which makes more sense? There's a lot of judgment that needs to go into writing your essays. The essays are more about the strategic planning that you're putting up in terms of putting your story across to the school, rather than just putting up the best words possible. So it's not a choice of words that you need to be focused on, it's the choice of the stories and the way you're putting it across that is the most important in your ISB YLP essays. The third part that is most very important for the ISB YLP process, which makes it hard to get into, is the ISB interview. Having said that, it is a very conversational interview. There is a lot of preparation that goes into it. So we'll be discussing on the preparation, or a step by step process of how you actually navigate all these challenges with Gurjot shortly. So Gurjot, please give us some tips as to somebody who's getting into this process right away for the stage one. What all other things that, and what is the timeline that they should plan themselves according to for the coming few months?
Right. So if you're just getting into stage one, I think that's a great time to work on your GMAT prep, because I think there's a timeline of 3 to 4 months between your stage one applications going out and for you to need to put in your stage two results, right? So with your stage two results, you need to share your GMAT score. So you just have a period of 4 to 5 months. So for people who do not have an existing GMAT score, their approach should 100% be towards GMAT, and start doing classes, start doing mocks. Because for me, my GMAT score was already there, and I had a very non-traditional approach towards studying for GMAT. It's because speaking about my past, initially I was looking to go into the field of law. So while doing that, I studied for my CLAT, I gave my MHCT. So for 2 years, I was studying for aptitude tests back then. Post that, I studied for another 2 years for my CAT, and throughout the entire process I was scoring really well. But then on the day of the exam I had a technical glitch, and so that day my cat didn't go well, but to be honest, today I'm thankful for that. But yeah, so for someone who doesn't have a GMAT score, that's all they need to concentrate about. But if you're someone who has your GMAT score out there, you need to take those 2 3 months to build on what you've spoken about in your essay, right? And what type of skills that you need to develop to be stand out from the others. So there has to be, take up courses. You can take up courses in the meantime. You look out for internships, as Shruti mentioned, in fields that are relevant to what trajectory you're showing in your essays. So that's the two paths that could be basis, where you stand at the moment.
So at the end of the process, do you feel there's a checklist? If somebody doesn't have three internships, is he at a loss of showing his credible performance for the ISB YLP application, or somebody who doesn't have, who has not traveled abroad or who has no international experience, is he at a loss? So what is it exactly that matters? How hard is it to get into ISB YLP? What do they look for? What are your feelings about it?
So, so completely speaking from my perspective, as I said before, also, it's completely all about showing the trajectory, right? They just want to see that what you're trying to portray yourself as, showing that I want to reach an XYZ stage, right? In my case, I said I want to grow in the field of private equity, reach to a fund manager level in impact investing, right? So they are seeing how the efforts that I'm putting into to be, grow into this field, right? And how not having an MBA is a constraint in my case, and how the MBA would help me, upskill myself to be in that position. So there has to be some sort of clarity as to what you want to be doing, where you want to be doing. There is no form of checklist where they see okay, he has three internships, so let's stick him. That's not true. If you have experience, that's going to be great. But again, then your questions are going to be around these experiences and these internships that you have, right? So if there's someone who's just to get an internship, then they will ask questions from this domain because they also are ISB grads, right? So they have been in the campus with 900 people come from different walks of life. So they do have a basic understanding of almost everything. So if you try to have a conversation with them about anything, they do understand. So if you come in there and lie about, your experiences, your internships, that's going to be the problem. But there's no hard and fast rule as to what they're looking at. You just need to show a clarity of thought. That's the basic need that ISB has out of a student. Yeah. So
Right. So
that's
fake
my
it till you
suggestion.
make it is.
Not going to work here.
So correct, correct, correct. Right. So the last criteria, but maybe one of the most important as well, is your academic excellence. So as a graduate who is just working out of college, it is very important that you are able to showcase that yes, you have a focus, you have been focused on the tasks at hand. So when you were pursuing a bachelor's program or when you're pursuing a postgraduate program, the task at hand is purely your curriculum. So that becomes the priority number one. So grades become very important over here. And then additional benefit that you have is a high GMAT score. So getting a good GMAT score will definitely aid you in the application process. And the question that comes in over here is how much GMAT score is required for the ISB YLP. So if we look at the class of 2023 for the ISB PGP, the mid 80% range has been from 690 to 760 as a YLP applicant because you do not have work experience to speak for you. So probably having a high GMAT score in this range or towards the higher side of the average, which is around 713. So the mean score is around 713. If you're slightly higher than that, will definitely show that yes, you have been one able to manage your curriculum along with your GMAT preparation. Second, you are focused and you are really keen because at this level, the school also knows that through the GMAT, probably ISB YLP is the only program that you are targeting because there are not a lot of options in India. So this is a lot of, a lot more signaling than just a number. It's not about your academic performance, but it is also about how much interested you are in the program and how much effort you have spent into preparing for this particular process, which is called the ISB YLP, which is probably the only one in India. So if you're writing the GMAT, you are scoring a 720 or a 730 and applying to the ISB YLP program. ISB also understands that yes, you are very keen on the program and you have invested yourself into that. So this brings us to another question, is that when you are an undergraduate student who has so many things on his plate, you have your curriculum, you have your grades, you have your internships, you have your the final year placements. How did you manage, or how did you approach the GMAT preparation across these stages? A lot of people do wait for the ISB YLP stage one results to start preparing for their GMAT. So, what is a good time to start the preparation? What should be the timing? What should be the process of preparation? So, please tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as I said before, my approach was completely different basis my past, right? So I've always been good with aptitude tests. I didn't really even prep for the GMAT exam, and all my prep was basis what I studied for CAT. So on that front, I have been lucky, you can call it, because I've always had an inclination to do well in aptitude tests. But what I would suggest a traditional approach and what I hear from other people who are giving their GMAT is that the sooner you start, the better it is, right? So if you're clear that you want to do the ISB YLP program, you apply, you start studying for GMAT alongside your internships, your studies basis, if you're in a final year of graduation or pre-final year, because these courses are anyways valid for a period of 5 years, right? So say you study for 6 to 7 months, are able to give an attempt. You do well, that's great. That course stays with you for 5 years. You don't do well, you take another 6 months prep, and you do it again. But again, if that's dependent on where in the trajectory you are. So for someone who has a lot of time, they can. If someone who's in a pre-final year can obviously, say hasten their studies, give their GMAT and apply it this year as well. Or else another approach that they could use is build their profile alongside, take another year to complete their studies, prep for GMAT. There are various sources available online, various, I think, in-person classes as well that are available out there, which people can go to basis. That's so. What I understand is approaching an aptitude test is completely basis your understanding of your clarity and your ability to do something, right? So if you need someone to sit on your head and make you study, I would suggest you go in and do like an in-person class, because one is that you pay a large amount, right? So that's one reason. Secondly, if you think you're someone who knows how to manage your time well, take up online lectures, solve a lot of mocks. So one thing that I did through the process was I sat and I gave mocks, because I had obviously been studying throughout this period for my CLAT and then CAT. So I gave mocks and I understood that I was able to get a fair score. So the score that I eventually got was a 720. I did get a 690 in my first try, which then further increased to 720. So yeah.
Right. And a lot of people do get disheartened, if they score a 600 or a 650 or a 680, and then they feel demotivated as to whether they should even go ahead with the GMAT. So, what is the role that the mocks play, and how do you actually, work with the mocks? So, should you give a mock every day, or should it be on alternate days? So, what is the strategy for the mock tests?
So I think you should give up to two mocks in a week, right? So you give one mock, take 3 days to analyze that mock well, right? So if you have a tutor, you should do the tutor one day and understand what are the areas that you are weak in. So understanding your weaknesses is the best way to tackle an aptitude test, right? Because what people traditionally do is they work on their strengths because that makes them feel good. But that's not how you approach an aptitude test. So, and or you just keep giving mocks and be like, okay, I finished up all the mocks, so now I'm prepared for this. But that's not how it works. So you need to give a mock, take 3 days to analyze that mock well, so section by section. Okay, take another day or two to work on that mock. Build on your weaknesses, prepare those. There are formulas if you want to learn or something like that, and then go ahead and give a second mock. Because otherwise, it's just there's no improvement that's happening, right, in that process. So just blindly giving mocks and just getting like a similar score. So
Are there any resources that you would like to, share things that helped you for the GMAT prep? So, some things like maybe some books or some tests that you would suggest.
so the only mocks that I had done were the MBA.com mocks. So there's not really much that I did on the GMAT front. So I won't be the best person to help on that.
Right. Okay, so one final look at the ISB application, the YLP application process. The stage one, which is due on 26th March, requires you to write one essay and submit an application form. This application form will have a lot of detail about the kind of activities that you have been a part of. One word of caution over here is that whatever you are filling in the form in your stage one, you will not have any option to edit it in the stage two. So be sure that you are filling the relevant parts appropriately. If you want to work on some things before you fill and submit the application, do work on those aspects and then think about it very with a very cool head. Understand that you've accommodated all the information that you want to put in, because the second stage will only have your essay, your GMAT or GRE score, your reference letter, and some additional uploads that you have to give. Whatever information that you want to share with respect to your extracurriculars or your hobbies and activities would be a large part of your stage one application itself. So if you have a long term plan as to, if you'll take up some activities in the 3 months hence or 4 months hence, and you want to get started with those and incorporate those in your stage one application itself, then this is the right time to start thinking of those things and strategically plan your application. It is not only writing one essay and submitting it, it is the whole packet that you're putting forward, which you will not get an opportunity to edit post this particular submission. At the stage two, you have your essay, you have your GMAT and GRE score to submit, and a reference letter. Your reference letter for the ISB YLP application, you can reach out to any of your academic professors, or you can also reach out to your internship guides. People who have guided you in the internship or have led your team on the internship projects. You can reach out to them as well. It is perfectly fine. At the stage two, you have an opportunity to submit your resume as well. So a resume is something that a lot of people ignore because it is an optional submission. Pay attention to building your resume properly so that you are able to put across a strong application. If you've missed out on something on stage one, resume is the place where you can probably build on that. Again, stage three is the ISB interview. It is a panel interview with the ISB alumni, mostly people who have graduated from the ISB YLP intake itself. And the interview, although it is conversational, they have read your application and they will be discussing at length in detail about each of the aspects of your application that you have submitted in the stage one as well as the stage two. So your essay is at stage one, your application at stage one, again your essay, your LOR at stage two, and the application that you've submitted all comes together for the ISB interview process. The fourth part is the work X requirement, which is the 20 months of work experience after you have graduated. So, two points to note over here are: number one is that your work X requirements, even if you complete it at any point in the year, so maybe it is August that you complete your 20 months, or you complete it in December, you will join the cohort in the following intake. So the cohorts usually starts sometime in April. So you will join the cohort in the coming April. That is the one part. Second is that as an ISB YLP applicant, you also have the opportunity to defer your enrollment for 1 year. So you can also, if you feel that you have had enough, you have not had enough work experience and you will gain more during the coming 1 year, you can, as an applicant, as an admit, defer your enrollment for 1 year, so the work experience requirement doesn't become 20 months. You can join after 32 months of work experience as well. So that is one opportunity that the ISB YLP applicants have. So we thank Gurjot for joining us here and taking out the time to share his views and share his ideas on the preparation of the ISB YLP process. So Gurjot, any last tips, any things that you would like to share for the people who are entering to apply to the stage two or the stage one of the ISB YLP?
Right. So, I mean, one of the last few tips would be very clear about what you're getting into, right? It's one of the most prestigious institutes out there, and I'm, to be honest, very lucky to have had the opportunity to be a part of the cohort next year. And I think it's great to have someone to guide you as well. So in my case, I was, again, as I said, I found out about the existence of ISB YLP as a course on the last day of the first stage applications, right? Towards my second stage of the applications, I had Shruti to help me. Suppose that through, helping me with my essay when I was trying to, put in facts, and like as she mentioned that, trying to tick a few boxes with saying, like, say fake an internship kind of a thing. So having someone who can guide you and help you with something, and correct sense of knowledge and experience in this field would be great, right? So read a lot about this, uh, get your internships in place if you have the correct time, get your GMAT score in place, and don't worry about the interview because people really stress about the interview. I mean, if you're not going out there with fake stories, just go there and share your story with them, and it's going to be a great experience.
Right. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking out the time. We wish you all the best for
Thank you.
the future
Thank
endeavors.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
so much. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
day. Thank you.